Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. Hey, everyone. Before we get started with the show, I'm excited to announce two things. First is that my book, Marketing Automation Unleashed, is now live on Amazon. So go get it. The second thing is we have a new sponsor, Qualified.com. I'm going to tell you about them in the next couple seconds here, and also how you can get a free copy of my book thanks to them. So who are these people? Well, Qualified is the #1 live chat and chatbot platform for Salesforce and Pardot. Sales reps can have real-time, personalized conversations with who? Your hottest website visitors. So I want you to know, I don't just partner with anyone. I genuinely love these guys. And the platform, we use it at my company. Our sales team loves it. We've closed a lot of deals based on it, had a lot of great conversations with prospects too. So, a lot of marketing these days is what? Hurry up and wait, right? Fill out this form. And then if we pass you over to sales, maybe you'll swap 6 emails with them to find a good time to talk. But what if a prospect is doing research right now and they would chat now? Why not give them the opportunity? So the best part is your company actually decides what leads are worth a live chat. There's a lot of noise out there. You don't want to talk to everyone. So Qualified actually connects to Salesforce and Pardot, and it's able to pull in lead and contact information so you can specifically know if you're talking to a VIP, a VP, a decision maker. It's really kind of like magic. Now, if you don't know who someone is, well, what happens then, Casey? Well, that's when the bots come in handy. Chat bots can then ask questions to further qualify a lead, find out if maybe this is someone you do want to talk to. And they can book meetings while your sales team is out. And they can wake up the next morning with a bunch of meetings on their calendar. Now, here's the promo. If you are a company that wants to give your sales team this ability, right, to be able to talk to decision makers right when they're on your website, do this. Go to qualified.com and start a chat, right? They use their own tool, of course. Start a chat. Tell them that Casey sent you. If you have Salesforce Pardot, when you schedule and then do a demo, they will send you a free copy of my book, Marketing Automation Unleashed. Not bad, right? Well, it's only while supplies last. So hop on this thing today. And that's it for sponsors. Let's get to the show. Yeah, here we are. I know it sounds different, everyone. Sorry, I didn't realize how terrible my headset was. Hey, I'm back on the mic, and I brought it to, I'm still here in Studio B in the coronavirus bunker. And I'm excited to be talking to our guest today. She's amazing. I've known her for a couple of years now. And more importantly, I've seen her work. I've attended the events she's helped organize. She is a passionate marketer. She is an ABM expert, but not the kind of expert that tells you things. And then you're like, how in the world am I going to apply this? This is like the everyday people's expert. This is the ABM for everybody episode, right? We're going to get
people's expert.
Yes, totally. And she is a helper of humans, formerly the director of Flip My Funnel People, organizing all those events, and the director of marketing at eHire, now a marketing consultant being pursued by the fastest growing companies out there who need her on the team. Nikki Nixon, welcome to the show.
Yay! I'm excited to be on the show. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
that was an awesome intro.
Oh, thank you. If you want, you can clip it, put it on your phone, and wake up every morning to just me, ladies and gentlemen, Nikki Nixon. That's like
I think I'll make it my alarm. That'll get me going.
Yeah, make it the alarm.
I will.
Yeah. So, hey, you're here. This is our marketing leadership series. You are a leader. You are crushing it. I have learned from you at those events. That's probably where I met you, I think, too.
Yeah.
And the Flip My Funnel events and all the things you're the glue that brings it all together. So we want to start the show off the way we start every show. Let me pass you this. It's heavy.
Okay.
I got it from the office. We used to have to pretend, but not anymore. All right, here you go.
Oh,
here's Thor's hammer.
Okay.
So take that. You got it? Okay. Oh, whoa, you're already swinging it. Crazy. Danger. So you're swinging this thing around. This is fantastic. You're already ready to go.
I'm ready.
Take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth bogus strategy, misconception that just drives you crazy? Set the record straight once and for all.
So the thing that drives me crazy is that people think ABM is only for large enterprise companies, and that is just complete crap. And I think the reason people think that is because they're scared. Honestly,
Mm,
I think it's fear. I think it's they are scared to let go of those accounts that really aren't serving them. But it's kind of ironic because they waste so much time on those accounts that are not making them any money. So I think it's a complete myth. I think unless you're a SaaS company that is super transactional and has a really low average contract value, ABM can work for you in some flavor, because really all it is focus. You're being
mm-hmm.
forced to focus on the accounts that are most likely to buy from you. And I do think, I have a theory, Casey, that this is ABM's finest moment. I think
Really?
we're gonna look back on this pandemic and we're gonna realize that ABM really turned a tide. That's my big prediction. And the reason I think that is because right now, marketers are in a place where their budgets have just been slashed and they're still expected to deliver results. So they have no choice but to focus, which
Yeah.
means they have no choice but to adopt ABM. So I think any business can do ABM. It doesn't mean that you have to invest in expensive technologies. That helps if you're trying to scale your program, but you don't have to do that. It really is about focusing on the accounts that are most likely to buy from you. So
Okay.
I'm smashing that myth.
It's what I love about this is you've done it, right? So
Right.
Terminus at the time, Flip My Funnel is like tiny little baby company. It's like cute little, oh, so cute, like Pretty Bird, and
Yep.
you're like, okay, and even Flip My Funnel as an event organizer is small to
Right.
begin with for a short period of time. So you really had to focus. You couldn't just boil the ocean and go after everyone.
Yep.
And I think you're right. And sometimes the bigger companies maybe aren't even doing ABM. They just have so much money they think they're doing ABM, and it's like, oh,
Right.
are we really? But you're right. It matters that much more the smaller you are, and the tougher the times. Like right now, it matters that much more. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you had to boil it down for me, like what is ABM? What is your approach to it? What would you say? What is the ABM for everyone? Like how do we approach it?
I think it's really kind of going back to what I said a minute ago. It's about focusing. It's about
Yeah.
knowing which accounts are most likely to buy from you. What are your best fit customers? What are the characteristics of those customers? And one thing I would say, one caveat to that is it's important to use data, but don't let the data paralyze you from getting started, because you can overanalyze that ideal customer profile so much that you never get started. And at some point, you do have to start to take some actions. So figuring out what is your ideal customer profile, look at your customer set today, and what are the characteristics of your best customers, and how can you go out and get more of those customers, or what accounts look like those customers. And you can use something like LinkedIn Sales Navigator to figure that out.
Really?
Um, you can plug all that information in the Sales Navigator and it will bring up all of the accounts that look like whatever your ideal customer profile
Oh,
is. So you don't have to buy expensive tools. You can just get a licensed Sales Navigator and that will give you the accounts. The second step of that is figuring out what are the personas that you need to sell to. So at Terminus, it was marketers. At eHire, it was technologists. So we knew that we either needed to sell to director above in marketing, or we needed to sell to director and above in the IT suite. So,
okay.
so once you figure that part out, again, you can plug that all that into Sales Navigator and start to look for those roles and who are those people. And then you can really start to figure out what are your engagement tactics around those specific sets of personas that you're trying to sell to. So I think that's the easiest, most simplistic way. And certainly you can get more advanced from there, but if you're a company just starting out, that's a great way to really figure out how do you start ABM.
Yeah. You brought up a real interesting point. You've had to sell to marketers.
Hmm.
Hello, here I am. And then you've also had to sell to technologists. Sometimes in marketing, we think we're technologists too. Maybe we are,
Yeah.
but selling to IT is just so much different. Marketing to IT is so much different than marketing to marketers. Could
Yep.
you highlight, because I think some of us have made that transition, or maybe you're forced to do that now. And
Right.
how do you change? What changed? And how did
So
you figure it out?
there's there's a saying out there that the hardest people to market to are marketers and IT people, because marketers know marketing, so you can't
Right.
be awesome. And IT people are very skeptical. So I think especially to IT people, one thing that I would recommend is they're not going to believe you. They're naturally going to
Right.
discredit you because they're naturally skeptical people. So the best way to go about that is to engage their peers, who happen to be your customers or people that they respect in the industry that also respect your company and are willing to speak positively about you, and really go the route of social proof and word of mouth, and use that in things like case studies or getting those people to show up to your event where you're also trying to engage prospects to really help do the selling for you. If you try to go it alone, I think it's just going to be really, really hard.
Do marketers, are we more positive? Do we not automatically discount things, or
I
is just IT you needed it that much more?
I think marketers really appreciate, especially in today's environment, they really appreciate authenticity. They really appreciate when things are genuine and they're not fake.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the key to winning over the hearts of marketers, is really being authentic, but you also have to be helpful. Like, you have to provide value to marketers. There's a lot of marketers out there that are not providing value. And so the
Yeah.
ones that win are the ones that are being helpful,
Got it.
especially in this day and age, for sure.
So the marketers want authentic and helpful. So what would you say IT wants then in that sort of value set?
Um, they want authentic and helpful, but they don't want it from you. They want it. They want it from their peers. So you kind of have to engage their peers to help do the selling for you.
Wow. That's cool. And by the way, if you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you're in IT and you're just nodding your head, like, tweet at me or something and be like, yeah, listen to that lady. She knows what she's talking about. That's
Yep.
funny. They want this too. They just don't want to hear it from you. 'Cause
Right. They're like, oh, marketers. I remember one of the first meetups I went to at eHire, where it was a developer meetup, and they actually called me out. It was kind of embarrassing. They were like, oh, here's the marketer. I mean, they were just totally dissing me. So I learned from that point on that they don't really like marketers. They're willing to be marketed to, but they want to be marketed to from their peers.
Hmm.
So that's why you see also a lot of community marketing in IT. They're very big on community because it's very peer driven.
It's funny because I think sometimes you might stereotype someone in IT as like lone or isolated, maybe,
No,
but they
maybe.
have their communities too, so I think that's kind of a myth as well that,
Yeah.
you know,
I will say the development team that I worked with at Terminus actually smashed that myth, because they were the most talkative bunch of
uh,
developers that I have ever worked with in my life. I mean, they were like watching YouTube videos, and they were like a bunch of chatty Cathys.
makes you wonder
Thankfully,
how they ever got it coded, right?
I don't know. I'm so confused. So, but they did somehow.
It's like you guys have so much fun, but then you're looking at sales at, seeing
Right.
them on their Razor scooters scooting around the office at the ATM.
Right.
You're like, what do you guys even sell anything? But of course they were selling things.
Right.
Maybe everyone works at 2 a.m. and then the rest of the time is just playtime. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. But they were very social.
Yeah, but this is good though. I mean, it's helpful because I know we kind of take for granted that we know our audience, but you may not know your audience. And
Yep.
I got a comp sci background, and I've been long in the marketing world, so that I'm probably a little too authentic and cheerful. I
Yeah,
know
me too.
sometimes, yeah. IT is like, really? Really? I know you would say that. So I
Yeah.
want to hear that from someone else that,
Right.
yeah. So if they sing my praises, maybe they're skeptical of that. But if you hear 3 or 4 people be like, nope, this was a good path to
Yep.
go, and they can listen to that.
Yep.
That's
For
cool.
sure.
So no, we got off on this tangent, but I'm glad you went down with me on this one because this is like getting to know our buyers, getting to know those people and targeting. And there's another
Yep.
point you brought up I wanted to go back to. I mean, this might get us back on the ABM track too. The
Yep.
idea of not getting paralyzed. I've totally done that. Where because you're like, I want to figure out who my ideal customer profile is, and what qualities do they have, and is it blood type, is it their like nationality, like I don't know,
Music do they
is it,
listen to?
or is it just their industry? And then you kind of feel like you're just targeting industries anyways.
Right.
And so I definitely have felt that paralysis where you're just analysis paralysis. You're trying to think so hard about who your ideal persona is that you haven't gotten past that step.
Right.
I know you mentioned Sales Navigator is one way of doing that. Is there how your go-to ICP, when you're going to start a new gig coming up soon probably, and what's the first thing you're going to do to try to figure out the ICP?
I'm gonna talk to sales.
Talk to sales.
Yep.
Okay.
Talk to sales. Probably do some digging around in their CRM to figure out what really is their best fit customer. Sales generally knows. They generally have a good idea. So I think, and I would say for anyone doing ABM for the first time, that is an important point. Is you shouldn't do it in a silo. You should
Yeah.
absolutely engage your sales team. Like it really has to be done in lockstep. If it's not, then you will fail. And then you'll
Right.
feel like, oh, ABM's not right for me. Well, it is right for you. You just engage your sales team. So make
Right.
sure that you're engaging them, that they have a say in the ICP, the potential accounts. They may also have some history with those accounts that they can share. So it's good to really do that in collaboration.
Yeah. For sure. It can't be in a silo, right? Because if they
Right.
had that data, it might save you months of
Right.
finding it. What if they
Yep.
don't have that data? Or sometimes I run into, optimistic sales teams. You're like, I will call everybody. Don't even worry about that lead is a D. No, 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 send it.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
call it. Of course, then we have trouble with them calling any lead sometimes.
I've worked with a few of those as well.
Yeah.
And it takes some education. And then at that point, I think marketing does have to take the lead a little bit to say like, hey, no, we're not going to pass you every lead, but not because we're trying to keep something away from you. Like
Right.
there's no value to us. We're all trying to drive pipeline here. There's no value from us keeping something away from you, but we don't want you to waste your time. And I
Right.
think when you position it in that perspective of, hey, we don't want you to waste your time, then, it's just a lot better received. But in terms of if you don't know your ICP,
Yeah.
then what I would recommend is really just taking your best guess
Okay.
and then start to go out and test it. And that's kind of where I was going with that analysis paralysis is I think you got to make a decision and you got to go out and test it because you're going to get more data and more information from going out and testing it than
Mm-hmm.
you would just kind of sitting around. The other thing I would say is stakeholder interviews are important, but as marketers, we have to be mindful of letting decisions into the hands of people who are not marketers.
Mm.
So I think that it seems like, I don't know if this is the case in every other function, but a lot of times in marketing, everybody wants to have an opinion on marketing. And sometimes you fall into this trap of decision by committee.
Oh
And
yeah.
then that also paralyzes your efforts. So you can certainly get feedback from people, but at some point you got to make a decision. You got to start going to market with it and test it and get the feedback. You're just going to get better faster that
Yeah.
way than you would sitting around. Because a lot of times what I've found is when you get into that decision by committee, a lot of it is opinions. It's not really database. It's just
Right.
opinions, and sometimes it's by opinion. It's opinions by people who don't even really know your target audience all that well.
Right.
So I think definitely like take the time, get the input, but then make a decision and go out and test it.
I think that's huge, right?
Yeah.
And that's huge because I've bumped into those situations where, yeah, it's like just hearsay. I remember asking sometimes, ask sales, and sales manager gave this sort of like high, big picture, macro view. It was so generic. And then the sales team was actually like very specific and it was great. And I've other times where it's the opposite. And then one time, neither group knew. They were all like, "Oh, we'll call everyone." And then it was this SDR guy who was like, "Oh yeah, it's blah blah blah. Like here's the 3 critical factors," and everyone was blown away. It's like, who invited this guy? I'm glad he's here.
Right.
Um, So
He actually knew.
yeah, he
Yep.
did. He did.
Yep. Cool.
Wow. So yeah, caution, like talk to people, get your information, but then go test. I love that you said
Yeah.
testing will give you more info than you can ever come up with in your analysis mode. So
Right.
go get at it. That's what we
Right.
do, right? In marketing, we're not just like we have one campaign in our lifetime and then that's it. That's it. X marks the spot, folks. You're game over. No, we have
Right.
multiple campaigns.
Test and optimize and learn. Yep.
Right.
For sure.
Right. And avoid the committee decision, especially if they're
Yeah. Oh, that's
rolling
like the
into a
death
meeting.
sentence.
Yeah, right. They're rolling into
Decision
a
by
meeting.
committee.
They've got their tuna fish sandwich and no data. And they're like, "Oh yeah, chomp, chomp, chomp." Like, "Oh yeah, you should go after IT project managers." Chomp, chomp, chomp. And you're like,
Right.
"Cool, good info. We'll check that out."
Right. Now we're gonna go sell to developers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks,
Right.
Greg. Appreciate it. All right, catch you
Right.
later. Enjoy that sandwich. Don't heat it up. Don't heat it up. So that makes a lot of sense. We get our ICP nailed. What are some of the first tests you do? Because you were mentioning do. What are some of the first things you would start executing once you've got some general idea? Do you want to go in that direction?
So one good way to test pretty easily is to do some account-based advertising.
Huh.
So, and that will allow you to see where the engagement is. So there was an account at eHire that we were going after, and we thought that we should go after the IT department. And what we found through testing and account-based advertising is actually it was the product management department that had the most interest. And really we gauged that from people who were clicking on our ads, and we could see those insights from like the LinkedIn advertising platform to be able to see like, okay, it's project management in this specific account. And so we were like, oh, well, we weren't even looking over there. So let's go over here and look. And what's cool about that is we had an account manager. Several account managers had tried to get into this particular account and they had failed. They had failed, like not a single meeting inside of this account. Really? And we had a new account manager working on it. And so I went over to him and I was like, hey, I really think like, here's the data. I showed him the data and I was like, we've been running these ads on this account and here's the data. And I really think you should try to go after the product management department. And he was like, oh, okay. And he went after the product management department. I helped him with the messaging and he was able to get several meetings, like where nobody else had been able to get meetings before. So that's a great way to test. And it also helps you to figure out, like, if you don't have any engagement from certain accounts, then you can prioritize the ones that do have engagement. So it helps you to focus a little bit further. One thing I would say is that LinkedIn ads are pretty expensive. Yeah. So I would run your test for a short period of time, maybe a couple of weeks, and just get enough data that you can start getting an idea of where you should focus. And then you can start putting your advertising dollars towards those specific accounts. So, but you don't need an expensive platform to do account-based advertising. You can just do it on LinkedIn. Or if you want to invest a little bit, you could do something like a Rollworks, that sort of thing.
Okay. This is cool because, I was kind of, I don't know, not salty is the word, but I've done LinkedIn advertising in the past, more of a traditional sense, the non-ABM kind. And it might be like kind of a nice bump at the beginning and then it kind of just trails off. And so I'd kind of never really thought of using it from the account sense, but then as you're describing it, where you'd say, oh, people in whose titles are similar to product management are responding.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, that's one way you can find out who's even just interested in your message.
Right.
At a general sense. And I could totally see us trying a test with that and putting out, particular phrase, and who responds to this? Is it the marketing department? Is it sales? Is IT responding? Is it the CEO? All the different groups would kind of tell you who's interested in what.
Oh, what I was going to say is one thing I would recommend is, even if you're not running LinkedIn advertising, a lot of people don't know this, but you can put the LinkedIn advertising pixel on your site, and it will give you all sorts of data about the
What?
companies and the titles and like the company size and all those things. You do have to have a decent amount of web traffic because it has to be able to anonymize it.
Right.
But that's a great way. If you see that there are certain accounts that are peaking on there, or there are certain titles that are peaking on there, I would absolutely start advertising to those accounts.
Oh my gosh, I gotta do it tomorrow. I can't believe we definitely haven't. I don't think we've done that. We've got to do it. That sounds awesome.
I would totally recommend that to anyone, even if you're not currently running LinkedIn ads, because it will still collect data on your site and report it back to you based off of the data that they have. It's basically like a free visitor ID. That's cool.
Yeah, and also would help you, to what we're talking about here, better identify the types of people coming to your site.
Right. And types of people who are most likely interested in what you're trying to sell.
Right. Wow.
Yep.
Power tip. Boom, left and right. See, the more Zoom freezes, the more power tips come out. This is fantastic.
I know. It gives me like 30 seconds to think. come up with bright ideas.
Right. It's like, pull out your Ethernet cord. Think. Okay, got a great idea.
I'll plug it back in.
Yeah. Oh, man. Crazy. Okay, sweet. So, I mean, I love chatting to you about this, because this really is that everyday ABM where we're getting some basic level targeting. We're trying it out. We're testing, using some pixels, just going after it. What kind of results are you looking for? I mean, you've shared some positive examples. Is there any point in time, because I love how this is just very straightforward. When do you change up? When do you, what kind of results you look for? Are there any markers you're kind of like paying attention for? When do you know you're done the test, and where do you go from there?
Well, I think you've never done testing. We'll say that. I think testing is a continuous process. But what I will say is a lot of it depends on your sales cycle. So at eHire, we had a very, very, very long sales cycle. And so for me to put revenue, it was over a year.
Yeah, I feel bad for people over a year, because
and it was complex.
Yeah, and you won't know if you're successful necessarily for a while.
Yeah. So to put revenue against those campaigns would not have been a good idea, considering that it took us 18 months from the time we had a first meeting in an account to the time we recognized revenue. So things that we looked at early engagement. So if you're looking at campaigns, like, are we getting clicks from those target accounts? I mean, that's an early one. And even in emails, like, what's the open rate of the emails that you're sending? And I know traditionally those are vanity metrics, and I'm not a huge fan of vanity metrics, but what you're looking for in those early stages is engagement. You're looking for interest. Which accounts are showing interest? So those things are leading indicators of interest. Like, is this account opening my email? Are they clicking through on the content? Are they visiting my website?
Okay.
I think those things. And then when you get further down the pipeline, you're having meetings with this account, then you can start looking at things like meetings booked. I think is a great one, especially if you're selling an enterprise. Like, you're not going to get a sale after the first meeting. Like, it just doesn't work like that. So, how many meetings are you booking? What is the depth and breadth of your relationships? If you only have one relationship inside an enterprise account, you're not going to be able to sell to them, because the average buying committee is like 6 to 12 people. I feel like it goes up every day, but you need to have strong relationships deep inside of that organization. So you can look at things in mid-funnel of like, how many meetings are you booking with this account? And then as that progresses, then you can start to look at, okay, we've had these meetings, we can put a pipeline number on that. How fast are we accelerating that pipeline to close? So I think the further down the funnel you go, the more you can start looking at at dollars versus actual engagement. But I think one of the things that I learned early on in Flip My Funnel was actually from John Miller, where he talked about time as a measurement. And he was basically saying that the more time someone spends with you, the more likely they are to buy from you. And so it's how do you get them to spend more time with you? And that could be in a digital sense. It could be, obviously face-to-face time is super valuable, but it could also be, how long did they spend on your webinar? The other interesting thing, I heard Rayanne Rice from, she works at Amazon now. She used to be at Juniper, but one of the things that she said at one of our conferences was, you have to measure like the vote for us score. Like, how likely is that account to vote for us? And she said, you, as an ABMer, you're working every day to increase the likelihood of that vote, so that when you get down to the final part of that sales process, then you've already built up this strong case for why they should vote for you. So I think there's a couple ways to gauge that, just depending on where you are in the funnel, and depending on how long your sales cycle is will depend on how long you stay in each of those stages.
Right. Yeah. Time measurement. The longer you spend with someone, the more you probably like them after that. That's why I scheduled
Kind
this
of like dating.
podcast. This podcast is going to be 9 hours, just so that by the end of it, you're like, that Casey guy's pretty cool. I like him. He's got my
Spent 9 hours with him.
Spent 9 hours in a canoe. We had a fishing rod and a mirror to signal planes, and that's it. And
totally.
we survived.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. John is a smart guy, super clever from the Marketo days, and Engagio and everything. Yeah, time. That's a good point. What do you measure when you can't measure? And time is a great example of that. And then the outcome of having them vote for us. I think that's a simple way of looking at it, but in a very understandable way. Look, it's a committee, and it's almost like I don't know if they say they all have vetoes, but they're all kind of like involved. Yeah. Like IT, we cannot go with this vendor,
Right.
Okay, well, I guess you got to pick a different one, or, who are we going with, everybody? And some people have veto and some people are just voting, but getting them to vote for you by the end of it makes total sense. Vote for us, like a big campaign sign.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. Very cool. Well, question for you: How does tech fit into this? I know you've mentioned some simple ways we can just approach things.
Yeah.
Things like marketing automation. Is marketing automation dead? Can we still use it? Do we use it for ABM? What do you think?
I think you can definitely use marketing automation for ABM. The challenge with marketing automation is that it's not really set up to do ABM. So you kind of have to set it up that way. And I know that they're moving in that direction. I know a lot of the marketing automation vendors are certainly moving in that direction, but I don't think that they're full on ABM marketing automation at this point. But what you could do is you could set up nurture campaigns by industry, or you could set them up by persona. So like, for example, at Flip My Funnel, we had both sales and marketing personas. And so if you're selling to multiple personas, and a lot of companies are, I mean, we simplify it by saying like, oh, we just sell to marketers, or we just sell to IT. But like at eHire, for example, we had both IT and HR. So we had two separate personas that were totally different, had totally different interests. So you could certainly set up nurture campaigns by persona. You could also set them up by industry. So if X company matches Y industry, they go into this nurture track. So I think you can customize it to work for you. It just doesn't quite come out of the box like that.
Yeah, some of the tracking.
So, yeah.
You mentioned even at Flip, the sales and the marketing personas. Amen. They're different groups, and we're all part of the same team, but have different personalities. Did you go into like subgroupings or like different kinds of marketing personas, or did you just draw the line at like they're marketers?
We didn't go into sub personas there because I think it would have been too granular
Mm-hmm.
for us to do that. But certainly, I mean, marketing and sales speak totally different languages.
For sure.
So the messaging had to be different. And that was actually something that we learned in the early days. We tried to go at salespeople with marketing messaging, and they totally dismissed us. So, yeah.
What did you change? How did you get their attention?
We just started speaking the language of sales.
Okay.
We started talking about things that sales cared about. It couldn't be a marketing message with a little bit of sales peppered in. Like, it had to be a true sales message. The other thing that we did that really helped was we also started engaging sales influencers to the point where we had full on sales tracks at our events that were specifically designed for sales. It wasn't just marketing messaging with a little bit of sales peppered in. So that helped too. That gave us a little bit of credibility. And we also did an event with Sales Hacker. So that also gave us credibility as well. But I think it was a little harder for us to win over sales than it was marketing. I think marketing got what we were doing, but I think sales, it took a little bit longer for them to kind of come on board to the flip my funnel movement.
Well, they got to put the Play-Doh down, right? You know, got to put the coffee down. Coffee's for closers, guys. Let's go.
Exactly. So, I mean, they really did. What was interesting about sales was that we really had to convince them of why it was worth their while to get off the phones for a day and come to our event, because their time was super valuable. We talk about time in terms of engagement, but they were super protective of their time, and so they made us work for it. If we had a salesperson show up, they definitely did not come easily. We had to win them over.
That's a good point. Like, they value that.
Yep.
Tremendously.
They do.
And I wonder, what did marketing value? If sales values time, what do you think marketing values?
Marketing valued, I think they valued education. They valued engagement.
Yeah.
Marketers are really, in general, I think they still are, but especially at that time, they were really hungry for knowledge.
Yep.
Especially as this new ABM movement was coming out. They wanted to know what it was and how to best implement it. And there was so much unknown. There's still a lot of unknown today, but especially at that time, there was so much unknown. So I think they were really hungry for knowledge because they wanted to know how to do ABM.
Yeah, marketers like to learn.
Yep.
I like that. What do you think IT's hungry for?
Coffee. I don't know. IT people really do. It's kind of counterintuitive, but they really do value community. They really like connecting with fellow IT people and being able to really just talk shop, talk about products or projects that they're working on, that sort of thing. But yeah, mostly community is a big deal for IT people.
That's interesting. What was HR? What was HR interested in? What do you think they're hungry for?
They were hungry for really being able to get the best people on board quickly. I think that was a big thing for them. They were
If I were to hold you to one word, like this game we've been playing, you didn't even realize.
One word. What are they hungry for? People. That's what they're hungry for.
People. Yeah.
They got to fill their roles.
I love this, and thanks for playing along with me on it. But it's very interesting. I can tell that you've really been learning about these different groups and what they value bubbles up. Sales with time, no brainer. I remember being in sales and be like, if you spend too much time on a no, you're bad. You just wasted time. You can't get back.
Time is money.
Time is money. Whereas in marketing, we are kind of hungry for learning. We're always trying to learn different things, webinars and that kind of thing. Yep. Whereas to your point, you get a marketer to show up. Oh, I might learn something here. Yeah, I'll show up. Let's see what happens.
Right.
Sales, I damn well better learn something. I'm going to show up. Right?
You better make this worth my time. I'm going to get off the phone. Yeah, exactly.
And then IT, and need to learn more about it. But the idea of, maybe in your day to day, you're not in much of a, maybe you're more of a silo. You want to
Right.
learn what are some of the hacks that are happening? What are some of the new techs that are happening? I
What's
want to,
everybody else doing?
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And seeing those people that you've been editing code with, from
Yeah.
afar.
Yep.
GitHub. Oh, you're my best friend on GitHub, but we've never met. let's,
I know.
let's get some beer together. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, very cool. Very cool. What's exciting you about the future? What, anything coming around the bend that maybe is good or is bad you want to watch out for?
I think what's exciting me about the future is personalization. I think,
Yeah.
I think, I actually think B2C is driving this. I think us as consumers, we're getting hyper personalized communications and experiences from companies. And now we're starting to expect that from businesses as well.
Yeah.
So definitely personalization. The other interesting thing I think this current pandemic situation has brought about is also purpose. I think
Mhm.
companies that operate with a purpose, and a purpose broader than just, hey, we want your money,
Right.
I think are going to be the winners. So the companies that care the most about their customers and the ones that operate with a purpose. Like I saw Zappos the other day. So Zappos has always been known for great customer service. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of their hallmark. And what they've actually done that I think is kind of cool, because they know that right now is a really stressful time for people. They've actually opened up their customer service line. You can call them and talk about whatever you want. They're like your therapist.
No.
I
Zappos
haven't, for the
therapist.
record, I have not actually done this, but I saw them advertise it the other day and I thought that is so cool. Um, they were actually one of the first companies, if I remember right, that did not hold their customer service reps accountable for their call time. I mean, a Zappos rep could have a 3 or 4 hour call, and it was like, it was no big deal. And in
Right.
most customer service situations, they're trying to get you off the phone as
That's
fast as
fast.
possible. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great example of a company that has really said, you know what, we're going to put our customers first, and people are going to buy from Zappos. I mean, Casey, imagine you're a rep from Zappos and you talk to me for 4 hours. Goes back
Yeah.
to goes back to the time thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't
Like,
I
girl,
buy
you want
from
some cheese
you?
now? Let's do
I
this. Let's
know.
go shopping. What do you
And
want?
even if I'm not ready now, I'm going to remember
Yeah.
that you spent 4 hours on the phone with me, like
Yeah.
talking about, cats and dogs and whatever my worries were for the day. So,
Yeah. It's that
yeah.
it's like a feeling more than even the logic.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think it's personalization. It's experience, I think, is another word that goes along with that.
Yeah.
I mean, customers are just demanding a more personalized, a more human experience, I think, is maybe another way to put it too.
Yeah.
They don't want to just be treated like a number.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's what's exciting me. And I think this pandemic will fundamentally change the way that companies operate. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what things look like on the other side of this. I think
Mhm.
that's interesting too. So I think the other cool thing is I'm also interested to see, not so much marketing related, but work related. I'm interested to see how many companies actually go back into their offices, and
Right.
how many stay remote. Like, now that they have seen that they're able to operate for an extended period of time. Um, so it'll be interesting to see the impact of that as well.
Yeah, I was having that thought earlier today. Not that exact one, but on the
Yeah,
same line, the idea of, what changes. Was trying to make a plan for, say, Q3 or the first 100 days. I forgot
right,
we talked about. It's important to plan for what happens when we get out of jail here,
right.
but what does change? You
Yep,
know, and we've gotten so good at adapting to this. I mean, I will appreciate doing things, but we've had some great virtual meetings now. We've had some where normally we might have flown somewhere. We kind of accomplished that without flying somewhere. So,
right,
doesn't have to change back. Well, what do we keep and what do we go back with? That, to your
right,
perfect point around the buildings. Chesh, we've always been remote,
right.
so no big deal. No building to pay for. But I have a friend who has a company in downtown Boston, and we're talking like 150K a year or more to just have that space.
Yep.
And wow, like that's
And now it's
150K I
empty.
haven't had to spend, and we can put that back on our people or going on
Yep.
trips together and stuff. And it's like, do you really need that space? Sometimes you do, but it definitely asks the question again.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we come out the other side of this, both from a work perspective and from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, the human side. See what
Yep.
happens to the humans. Um, I'm looking forward to Zoom just having a little more bandwidth. They need a little humble pie. Like, okay, take their users back down to 150 so that I can actually get my
Right.
podcast call completed without drops. Well, Nikki, who are you? Like, can you take us back? I love to figure out what experiences you've had and what was it like being you growing up to understand how you've accumulated all this knowledge. And you take us back, like little Nikki days. Did you always know you were going to be like a marketing queen and crushing things?
No, I don't think from a kid I knew that I was going to be a marketer. I went through a lot of variations of what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Yeah.
As most kids do. At one point, I wanted to be a veterinarian. At one point, I wanted um, to be a nurse. I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
What's interesting though, like now as I'm thinking about that, I think they all had a central theme of helping people.
I was just going to say that.
In some way.
Yeah.
And I've never realized that until I just verbalized that. So thank you.
You need a soundbite.
I know. Discovered. So I guess I always knew that I wanted to help people. And I think I've always tried to approach marketing from that perspective of how can I be helpful. I think the point when I realized that I wanted to be a marketer, I was actually in the restaurant business. So this was around, I want to say 2006 was probably the time.
Okay.
So I kind of did life backwards. I went to work first and then I went to college.
Okay, I thought you were going to jump over
then,
school for a second. I was like,
no.
I'll allow it this time, people. But okay,
No.
so like straight from high school right into the workforce, or how did that work?
I went to community college a little bit, but I just I wasn't ready and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And
who is, right?
My parents were like, we're tired of wasting money when you don't know what you want to do. So, so I moved to Atlanta in 2005. I grew up in Virginia, near Virginia.
What part of Virginia?
I actually grew up in Smithfield. It's the ham capital of the world.
Smithfield.
That's
about what capital?
The ham capital of the world.
Okay.
If you ever had a Smithfield ham, it's made in Smithfield, Virginia.
So I'm from Virginia too, so it's kind of funny. I don't know where Smithfield.
Oh, okay. Are you Googling it?
Yeah, I'm Googling that. You know it. I don't have a producer to like pull it up on the screen for me.
Yeah, it's about 45 minutes away from Virginia Beach.
So that's cool. That's where I'm
pretty close to the coast. Oh, you're from Virginia Beach?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So we can geek out Virginia style.
I definitely spent a lot of time on the water when I was a kid. For sure. Yeah. So I moved to Atlanta in 2005 and I went to work in the restaurant business and I didn't really know where that was going to lead. I knew I wanted to go to college once I got to Atlanta, but you have to establish the whole residency thing. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go work in this restaurant for a year and wait some tables and earn some cash and just establish my residency and then, I'll figure it out. So I actually ended up staying there a lot longer. I ended up staying there like 7 years. So it was a lot longer than I wanted to, or I thought that I would stay in the restaurant business. But at some point,
were you doing tables the whole time? Were you just crushing out your table game?
And so I started as a server and then I became a corporate trainer. So I traveled around and I opened up restaurants and was actually like helping the restaurants train their front of house staff. So that was super cool. Like early 20s, I'm like getting to travel around and and everybody was in their early 20s that did that. So it was cool. I'm still friends with a lot of those people today, which was fun. But then 2008 happened. And so what happened in 2008 is they stopped opening so many restaurants. So
Mm-hmm.
they went from opening 100 plus restaurants a year to not opening any. So I went back home to my home restaurant and, was like, okay, what do I want to do?
Right.
What's next? Like, this season is clearly over. What's next?
Yeah.
And so one of my, so the restaurant I worked for, they were starting to invest in local marketing. And so they had a local marketing person assigned in each restaurant that was responsible for like engaging like schools and churches to do give back nights where they would come in and you give back like a certain percentage
I remember that.
marketing.
Yeah.
And what was cool about that was it actually, I think it's what gave me a taste of revenue marketing and what excited me
Really?
about revenue marketing, because I could see, like, if I brought this church group in or this school in, that that resulted in X amount of revenue. And
Right.
and my restaurant actually led the region, was always in like the top 5 for like most local marketing dollars driven.
You
So,
could see it because they used like a coupon to say, or like a code
right,
with this group,
right.
you get a discount, or they donate the money. And
Yep. So yeah, and I mean, you got to do some good for the community, and also got to drive business at the same time. So, so there came a point, probably a couple of years later. So I did go into management,
mm-hmm.
and there came a point where I was just like, I like this marketing thing, but I don't want to be in the restaurant business the rest of my life.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, what do I do with this? And so, so I started going to school online. I went to school for 2 years online, and then eventually was just done with the restaurant business. I was like, it's time to move on.
Right.
So I
That'd be a
actually,
grind, right? Just like hard. You gotta
oh yeah, I
make
mean,
it.
I was working 60 plus hours a week, and I was
Jeez.
going to school full time online. So that was tough. And then from there, so the I think this is around 2010 maybe. So the economy we were still in a recession.
Huh.
Things were still continuing to decline. I actually almost moved back to Virginia at that time, and I remember my dad told me, he's like, I know you really want to move back. He's like, but I don't think it's a good time for you to come home. And I'm like, what? Like, you don't want me to come home? Like,
Right.
what are you talking about? And what he said made so much sense, because that part of Virginia, as you probably know, is very heavily military.
Yeah.
And the military was also downsizing. And so he's like, if
Uh,
you come home, you're going to be competing with all of these veterans for jobs. And he's
right.
like, there's not even really that many jobs here. He's like, you're better off just staying there. And I said, okay. So I was like, I'll cut a deal with you. I said, I'm going to apply to Georgia State. I'm going to apply to Hampton University. And whichever one I get into, I'm just going to assume that that's where I'm meant to go.
The
And
fates will
so
decide where I
the
go.
fates will decide. And what's funny is I actually got accepted at Georgia State before I was able to complete the application to Hampton University. So, so then I had to call my dad up and be like, "Oh, you were right." I was like, "I guess I'm staying here." So, so I originally majored in marketing,
Yeah.
and then before I started, I went to my first like advisement session, and the lady asked me if I had ever considered a double major, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
or like a minor or something like that. And I said, no. I said, but like, tell me what my options are. And she started telling me about the computer information systems major. And I quickly realized at the time that there were so many marketers in Atlanta that I had to do something to set myself apart. And so I went back like the next day and I was like, yeah, sign me up for that. So I
Right.
want to do both. So, and looking back, it was such a great decision, because not only did it set me apart, but it also taught me to be analytical as a marketer. And I think that that's such a valuable skill, to be able to be analytical and to be creative with figuring out solutions to things. So that's kind of how I got here. And then I got plugged into the Atlanta startup scene. I met Kyle Porter. I went to work at Sales Loft, and then I met Eric Spett and Sangram, and
Yeah.
They were like down the hall building Terminus. So then I
Right.
went to Terminus, and then later went over to eHire. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
Huh. What a crazy twist, but an interesting background to,
Yep.
the restaurant industry. You literally know if you brought in money or not. And that group
Right.
will or won't get money from that. And it's like very cut and dry. And it's funny how we get more complicated, it gets fuzzier.
Yep.
And all these other lead sources, but at least you started in a way where it was all about showing results.
Right. And that's what I've always been passionate about. I've always wanted to drive results. I was actually talking in one of my interviews yesterday about the marketing high. And thankfully the lady laughed and didn't think I was crazy. But I was like, there's just a high that you get as a marketer from, doing something that produces results and that drives revenue for the company and helps the company grow. And so that's the exciting part of marketing for me.
Right.
So,
right. And I could see that because even when you had said veterinarian, nurse, eventually marketer,
right.
just trying to help people the whole time.
Yep.
And that makes you a better marketer too, because you're not trying to trick people into clicking. You're really just trying to help them.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you were to look back on, your marketing career, hypothetical, I may or may not have a time machine in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Okay.
We use it now because of coronavirus. We gotta cover it with tarps and everything. But this whole thing clears. You come up to Nashua and you use the time machine. You get to go back in time to visit yourself at the beginning, we say, of your marketing career, but it could be any time. So it could be while you're still in Virginia doing the restaurant gig. It could be at the very beginning of your restaurant gig. Anytime around there, you get to go visit yourself.
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself to do? More of something, less of something? Don't do this, do this. Anything you would advise yourself?
I think I would tell myself to believe in myself more.
Yeah.
I think it's probably what I would do. I think early on in my career, I placed I don't want to say my identity, but I placed my belief in the hands of others more so than myself, I guess is the best way to say that. So, and it turns out I really did know a lot. I did know what I was talking about. And I gained more confidence in that the further that I went on. But like just coming out of school, I let others really validate that for me versus me validating it for myself. So I think I would definitely do that differently. And I would definitely tell myself,
What would you do differently? Because it sounds like for sure the advice.
I think I would just have more confidence and more conviction in what I was doing. I think for sure. So, and I would be willing to bet that anyone coming out of college probably does struggle with that because you don't think you know a ton and you're like, oh, these people have been in business for a long time. But oftentimes it's the person with the least experience that has the most innovative, freshest ideas, and I mean, I've learned so much from interns, that I've had the opportunity to work with just because they're not clouded by years and years of experience. Right. So yeah, I think definitely that. I think it would just be a belief more than necessarily an action per se. Yeah. The other thing I would do as well is I would also, something I did earlier in my career that it took me a while to get out of was I tied a lot of my identity to my career. And so, and that's fine when things are going great, but when things start to go sideways, I think it can be a really dangerous thing. And I think a lot of people don't realize it until it's too late. So certainly, I love being a marketer, but it's not I wouldn't say it's my identity, Yeah. So, and what I realized, I actually did kind of a morbid exercise one day to realize this.
Yeah, what is it?
I wrote my own eulogy.
Okay.
So I wrote my own eulogy from the perspective of like 3 different people. And what I realized is that, when my days are done and everybody's standing around and they're remembering me, nobody's going to talk about how great of a marketer I was. They're going to talk about how great of a human I was. And that was like, it was so eye-opening to me because it helped me really just redefine success. And it wasn't about the campaigns. It wasn't about the hours that I put into my job. It was really about, what kind of human am I going to be? And like, how do I want to be remembered from that perspective? So yeah, I would say that's something that I wish I probably would have done earlier. I think it would have kind of changed the game for me.
That's cool. Where'd you
So,
get that exercise from? Because that makes a lot of
well, I actually heard it in church.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but it came from, what is it? I think it's Stephen Covey's The Seven Habits book.
Covey
I,
life.
I think that's actually where it came from, but I heard about it. It was like a church service.
Yeah. Who are the three people, or who are the three types of people? Are you just in general, or is like one your mom and one's your friend? And
It was a person I was dating at the time, a friend, and I forget who the other person was. I think there might have been a couple of friends that I did it from a perspective of. But I mean, you could do any three people that you feel like are closest to you that know you well.
Mm.
And what I actually did that really helped was I went back and I read it and I underlined like the common themes
Mm-hmm.
that I saw. And so that really just helped me a ton.
Yeah, and I could see, I could see some results may vary, but
Right.
it kind of just highlights. And what if it did say like marketing campaigns? Is that what you want it to say?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
I
Do
think
I
back,
want to be remembered for that campaign?
yeah, like who, and we don't even talk about them now, anyways. Like the Mad Men people.
All right.
Um, there's a probably uh, like there's maybe a few marketers that maybe written some books.
Right.
You would be like, oh yeah, those are great books though. They're great writer, but like
Right.
that guy was a great marketer, like he tricked a lot of people into buying Ajax, like maybe there's something else, you're living for. Maybe you're trying to help people. You
Right.
have family, you have friends, you care for people, you've gone on trips or
Right.
that actually matters. And whatever matters to you, but like that's a great way of saying, they would say this, yep. Is that what I want them to say? Is that the most
Yeah.
important thing
That's
here?
such a great point. Like if someone stands up, it's almost comical to me now.
Yeah.
If someone stands up at my funeral, they're like, "Man, she just grew that company so much, and she drove so much revenue."
Yeah.
And I will just feel like I missed the mark.
Well,
If that's
interesting,
the
right?
case,
Yeah.
So, and I don't say that to diminish the importance of being
Right.
a great marketer. Like certainly I want to be a great marketer and I love what I do, but I realize that there's a balance and there's more to life and there's more to me than just driving revenue for this campaign. So
Right.
I think it's important to recognize that. And I think I've seen an increase of articles about this recently, and I think that people are really starting to feel that because there's been a lot of layoffs right now, and so a lot of people who had their identities tied up in their jobs now don't really know who they are because they no longer have that as a part of their persona. So I think it's super important and it's super timely, and it's something that, like I said, I wish that I would have done earlier. So
Right. Huh. Yeah. I mean, it's what's important to you, right?
yeah.
And so and those things all matter.
Yep.
Speaking of important, I mean, I know you do some things outside of work, and um, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, the dog training thing that you've been.
Oh yeah. So I have a therapy dog.
Yeah.
She
It
is
started out as a therapy dog, though, right? Started out just a
no,
dog.
she didn't. She's sleeping right beside me. She's like fast asleep. She's on an extended sabbatical right now.
Got
um, but no, she didn't start out as a therapy dog. She started out as a rescue, and I didn't get her with the intention of her being a therapy dog. So she was 7 years old. She was in a rescue. She was there for probably about 2 months. She was actually found on a construction site, just wandering around, and they brought her in. So she's also, I have to mention, she's a black dog. And the reason I say that is because black dogs are often overlooked in shelters. And sometimes like I look at her and I'm like, how were you like not snatched up immediately? But I think that was part of it. Was I think she just kind of blended in and got overlooked, which I'm somewhat thankful for, because then she ended up with me, which was cool.
Right.
So her name is Faith. And so I had her for probably about a year, and people started to say to me, they were like, oh, she's so great with people. You should really consider training her as therapy dog. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. And then I saw her engage with my grandmother. So
Mm.
my grandmother is elderly. She has dementia. She's somewhat verbal, but not, she can't put all the words together. And so I realized that she was able to engage with the dog, and she would just light up whenever I brought the dog over. And I realized one day, and I remember saying to my dad, I was like, I think I figured out like the dynamic here. I said, she lights up with this dog because neither of them have to speak. She doesn't have to find the words. She can just engage with this dog through touch and through
Wow.
facial expressions. And so it's freeing to her to be able to do that. So yeah, so it was that experience, and then we had another experience where we actually walked around one of the parks in downtown Atlanta, and it was in the middle of the winter, and we were handing out blankets to homeless people,
Hmm.
and I saw how she actually, like, those homeless people probably would not have given me the time of day if she wasn't there, but the fact that she was there really made them comfortable, and I was able to engage in a conversation with them. So after that, I was kind of like, okay, she really does have the makings of a therapy dog. So enrolled her in training. And it's really comical looking back now, because the first training session, Casey, was just a gong show. I mean, I took her in, I was like, oh, she's ready, she's gonna be a therapy dog, and she barked the whole
Ah,
time.
like, were there other dogs there? So it was like,
Oh yeah, it was like a group training session, and she was like, yeah, I mean, she barked the whole time. It was so embarrassing. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know, if this is for us.
yeah, right.
And thankfully, the trainer that we worked with was just like, she was just the sweetest lady, and she could
Hmm.
tell that it was stressful for both of us. And she
Right,
was
right.
like, she came over and she was so nice, and she's like, look, she was like, she's never been in this type of environment before. She's like, so you have to remember that, that
Right.
this is a totally new experience for her. She's like, I do think she has the makings of a therapy dog. She's like, but she's like, I think she needs more time. So we actually got a little demotion that day. We had to go back to the basic obedience class,
Sure.
instead of the therapy dog class. So we spent some time there. So it took us about a year, and it was a pretty hard journey because she had never really had any formal training before,
Right.
and she was older. She has a strong-willed personality. So I mean, really, the deck of cards was just stacked against her. But we just kept at it. We just kept going, and I would work with her at home. We'd go to Home Depot and practice stuff, and
What
uh,
kind of things would you practice at Home Depot? Just not doing anything?
well, no, we would do different skills, different obedience skills, like sit, stay. People would come up to her and like pet her, and she would engage with people and stuff like that. So we would do a variety of things. Whatever it was that we were working on and training at that time,
Mm.
I would do it at Home Depot as well, because dogs, something I learned is that dogs are not environment dependent. So just because they learn one thing in their house doesn't mean that they'll repeat it in another location. You almost have to reteach it to them
Really?
in another location until they've been taught it in so many places that they then know that that's what they're supposed to do.
Oh, like
So
keep it home, but not at the dog park.
right, exactly.
Right. Or
So
yeah,
yeah,
wow.
so it was a long journey. It was a hard journey. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I thought we were going to go this little 6-week class, and she would be good. But yeah, she finally passed the test. So that was awesome. And so right about the time we did one therapy visit to a special education classroom, here in Georgia, and that was awesome. And then they shut down the schools after that. So
Yeah.
we haven't been able to go out.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to going out and serving again. Hopefully we'd love to go to like the police station, have her engage with the police officers, different things like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that once
Yeah.
we get our restrictions lifted and we can go out again and really just put her to work. So yeah, I think it'll be cool.
Question for you. It
Yep.
sounds like a lot of work, and you mentioned getting demoted and having going. I mean, I've had dogs that never make it out of that. I'm looking at them like, yeah, you're just like me. We're never going to pass this class. Like, just don't run in the street and we'll be okay. Like that's all the basics from you. But to go back and do that class and to work your way back up and then go through all of like, why did you stick with it? What made you stick with it?
Well, I started to believe it was a calling. I
Yeah.
believed that I was meant to do it. You know, I was like, if all of these things happened and they fell into place, yeah, I definitely believed that it was a calling. And I think that's what kept me going. But I'll also say, Casey, that she taught me a lot in the process. She taught me a lot about patience. She taught me a lot about grace. I remember like there was one day that we were doing our regular morning routine, and she didn't want to go to the bathroom that morning. She just wanted to like sniff around, and I was all stressed out because she was,
go
you know,
dog.
I was like, hurry up. Like I could literally hear the cars. Like we live like near the main street. I could hear the cars building, and like with every car that drove by, like I was getting more and more anxious. And so I ended up yelling at her that morning, and I felt terrible. Like I felt so bad the whole day. And I got home, and she's just sitting there at her gate, like had totally forgotten about it, and was like wagging her tail and so excited to see me. And I remember in that day, I just learned so much about like just grace and forgiveness and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So she's taught me that. She's taught me patience as well. I mean, it takes a ton of patience to go through that journey.
Yeah.
Positivity, things like that. I mean, what's interesting is even though she's a strong-willed dog, like you almost have to be overly positive with her because that's how she responds.
Right.
You know? They feed off of whatever your energy is. So if I go into a situation and I'm tense or I'm nervous or I'm frustrated, then she's going to respond the same way. And so I had to learn to like, okay, like we're going to training, and you know I'm going to be like super upbeat and positive today, and
right.
You know, so yeah, she taught me a ton through the journey that I think just really made me a better human overall. So that was the cool part too.
That is cool. So there's some benefits beyond the work and some learning lessons you never would have gotten otherwise.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it ties into, I mean, it ties into the whole veterinarian thing, but just trying to help people.
Right.
The end is not necessarily the training. The end is the stuff that you'd be doing right now if you weren't stuck at home.
Right.
It'd be going to visit people and bring them a little spark of joy that you know, a human may not be able to do. We're a furry little creature. I mean, who says no to a cute little...
I know.
There's a reason we have teddy bears, right? Because these furry little animals are like, yeah, get over here, little animal. Like, my friend. I like the human, but I like this furry thing.
She's what's really cool is we've had a couple scenarios that were not planned that she's been able to work, if you will. So we had our neighbor the other day. It was a brand new neighbor. I've never met this lady before. Had faith with me, was just taking her out for a walk, and this lady starts to tell me about how her husband had just recently passed away and that she was a widow and that sort of thing. And I'm telling you, like, Faith just on cue just walked over to the lady and started like comforting her. Wow. And it was just so cool to watch. Like, she never vest on or anything like that, but she just knew that this lady like really needed some comfort. So that was cool to watch. We also we had an unfortunate incident outside, like actually right outside of my apartment complex. There was it's probably a few months back, like the end of last year. It was actually right before she got certified, and it was a fatal accident. So really, really tough day for
Right outside your
just
apartment?
literally right outside my apartment
Wow.
complex. I was actually, the craziest part is I was actually probably 3 cars behind the person that got hit. So anyway, when I realized what was happening, I ran home real quick and grabbed Faith and, threw her vest on. And it was kind of funny because she was sleeping. So she did the good snooze. And I was like, all right, come on, it's time to go to work. And
Like,
so
Mama, good morning.
she, she's like, let me get the, sleep out of my eyes.
Right.
But yeah, she went down. There were actually multiple victims. But yeah, she went down and she was able to, I mean, she just walked right up to the people and was able to just provide some comfort at a time that was just really, really hard. And it was actually that day that I knew that she was going to be okay. I was like, okay, like she's ready to test. Like
Yeah.
she has everything she needs to know. And it was cool for me that day just to see it all come together, in a really meaningful way. So yeah, I mean, I think those moments, and the few moments that we've been able to go out and serve people have been really, really cool.
Yeah, and do you think she takes after you, or do you think you guys are kind of like on the same page? Because I know you've done some trips, right, to like South America and other places to.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if she takes after me. I
No,
don't know. I don't know how that
as
comes about.
complimentary to each other kind of thing. Or?
Maybe. I mean, we're a team, and a lot of therapy work does depend on the relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly, even now while we're stuck in the house, we're still doing training and stuff like that. So I'm
Good.
constantly working on the relationship with her, just to make sure that stays strong. But yeah, I have done a couple of trips down to El Salvador, Costa Rica, to do mission work there. So that's been really cool. If you're watching the video, you can actually see in my background is the city of San Salvador. So
Wow.
there, whenever we go there, there's a restaurant that we visit up on the volcano, and we always go right at sunset, and so you can see the whole city of San Salvador. So that's cool. In El Salvador, I've been able to work with an organization called La Casa de Mi Padre, and
Hmm.
it stands for my father's house.
Mother's house, yeah.
Yep, my father's house. And they are doing some great work down there. It's more like a foster group home.
Okay.
So they take in children that have just had really difficult pasts and for whatever reason just can't stay with their families,
Mm-hmm.
and they come to live with a host family. And
Mm.
so the home is really set up like a family home. And so there's a house parent couple that lives there. A lot of times the house parents also have their own kids
Yeah.
that live there as well. And then they live together as a family. They do everything together as a family. So these kids who've had these difficult pasts really get to see what it's like to live as a family. And so
Right.
they get that modeled for them, and they're able to also, they give them a lot of services and support to really help them heal from the trauma that they faced, and also help them get back on track with their schoolwork, because a lot of times they're behind in school as
Oh yeah.
well. So it's an awesome organization, and I've had tons of fun just going down there and being able to meet the kids and create relationships with them. And it's interesting. I speak a fair amount of Spanish, but it's interesting because sometimes, the language of play is just universal. They don't even care. They don't care that you know the language. They don't care that you know the rules. Sometimes they don't even know the rules.
Yeah.
They're
Just
just
soccer, right?
kind
Just
of making it up as they
yeah.
go along.
Totally.
So, but yeah, it's been great. It's been a really rewarding experience. So
I was gonna say they might offer services, but there's nothing quite like just being able to let your guard down in a home that cares about you and be like,
yep,
wait, people are being nice to me, and
yeah,
I can just sort of let out my breath for a second, at
yeah,
a rough time. That's a really cool
it's really
blessing to be
cool.
a part of for sure. What's it like? Like, is it just like straight up third world country, or you fly into San Salvador? And I mean, what's it like?
So, San Salvador is actually very commercialized.
Really?
So, it almost looks like it looks like Atlanta or
Really?
Boston or whatever. It's very commercialized. Actually, right outside, we stay in a hotel there, and that part of that is for safety reasons. If you know anything about Central America, it's not the safest place in the world to travel, although we've never had any trouble, but there are safety risks there. And so we do stay in one of the nicer hotels there purely for safety risks or for safety reasons.
Sure.
But right outside of our hotel, there's actually a McDonald's. And it looks just like a McDonald's that you would see like here in the States. But then the farm where La Casa actually operates is in a much more rural part of El Salvador. And so that the farm is actually very nice. Like the kids live in very nice homes like you and I would live in.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like if I was a kid in El Salvador, like I would think I died and went to heaven, you know, because it's just such a nice place and it's beautiful. I mean, the scenery, what do you call it? Like the plants and the flowers, it's very tropical, but there's a community that surrounds the farm that La Casa sits on. And that is very third world. So that's everything that you could imagine in terms of a third world country. And we always take a day when we're there to go and visit that part of the community. And we'll take them food and we'll go out and visit with them. So, but yeah, that is very
like shanty town, like tin roof kind of thing, dirt floors, and
yeah. I mean, a lot of them don't have kitchens. They're cooking with fire. They're hanging the clothes out to dry. One of the cool things that we did on one trip that I went there, we were actually able to take water filters to them so that they could clean their water. And so that has a lot of health implications as well that feed over to every other part of their life. So that was really cool to be able to provide them with a water filter so they could have clean water.
I think that I was saying this earlier, it's important for people to see that or to experience that at least once to really appreciate, like, you know, even here, like we have running water in our restaurants, you know, or in our rest stops at highways, like, and some of our rest stops probably are nicer than the houses of some of these people by far.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And just makes you appreciate. For me, it was in Iraq and that kind of place. The same kind of thing where there's some nice houses and you're like, oh, I didn't expect this. It was actually very nice. And then some people just living on just surviving, you know.
Right. They're just trying to make it. Yeah, for sure. I definitely appreciate what I have so much more after being there, for sure. So yeah, it's an interesting experience.
Yeah, but you know, the acts of service, right? Whether you're local or down there, you're just trying to help people out and
helper of humans.
What's that?
I said helper of humans.
Helper of humans. Here it is. Mic drop. Well, hey, how can people connect with you? Where are some good places to reach out? LinkedIn, Twitter, all those.
So yeah, definitely I spend most of my time on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So you can definitely connect with me, Nikki Nixon, on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Also, Faith has an Instagram page. I don't know if anybody's interested in her Instagram page. I think it's Faith the Canine Missionary. It's her Instagram. So we post a lot about our adventures and things like that.
Faith the Missionary Dog?
Yeah.
Okay. Faith the Missionary Dog.
Yep, that's her Instagram. So if you're interested in following our adventures with Faith, you can check us out there too.
Pretty sure she's got more followers than I do.
Probably. We're just getting it going, so it's still growing.
Well, you got photos there too, the training and.
Yeah, I taught her yesterday how to sit in a chair. So that way, and there was a purpose behind it because right now, like everything that we're doing is video.
Yeah.
So I want her to be able to like sit beside me on video. So that we worked on that yesterday. So she had fun.
Very cool. Cool looking dog.
Yeah, she's a pretty dog.
Smart. Wow. Okay, cool. Well, we got some great places to reach out. We got to follow the dog. For sure. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
It's been a blast. And like I've been learning things. And so for those of you listening, if you have learned anything, and I know you have, you literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. Um, wow, all the things about ABM, getting practical with that, the confidence, the conviction, helping people out, the ICP, testing things, LinkedIn, AdPixel, do it right away. There's so much stuff on here. So be a thought leader. Share this episode with one person,
Yep.
42 people, 98 people, 1,008. Like pick a number, just share it with them, get the information out. You'll be the thought leader that way. And again, Nikki, this has been fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Keep in touch, and best of luck on those interviews you have coming up. And
Thank you.
there you go. So I'm excited for you.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Casey.
You bet. Hey, have a good one. And everyone out there listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time. All right. A big thank you to today's sponsors. Cheshire Impact, helping marketers and sales win, maximizing the use of Pardot and Salesforce. And a big thank you to Qualified.com, the #1 live chat and chatbot platform for Salesforce and Pardot. Remember the giveaway. If you have Salesforce Pardot and you want a free copy of my book, Marketing Automation Unleashed, then you go over to Qualified.com, engage in a chat, do a demo, and tell them that Casey sent you, and that book will be on its way to your door. All right. We'll see you all in the next one.